Something important is coming your way, and it's been moving for much longer than you realize. Before you continue listening, take a moment to be fully present. What you are about to hear is not by chance. It's not a coincidence. It's not something you've made up. For a long time, you've sensed something beneath the surface. You may have questioned it. You may have tried to explain it. You may have convinced yourself that you were over-interpreting certain moments, but deep down, a part of you never stopped noticing. A part of you never stopped feeling that something was there. Your intuition has been speaking to you quietly for a long time, not through grand announcements or dramatic signs, but through small sensations, subtle moments, and delicate impressions that stayed with you long after everything else faded. Even when you tried to ignore those sensations, they remained. Even when you focused on other things, they returned. Even when logic told you to move on, something inside you continued to listen. Very soon, someone may utter words that confirm what you've long sensed. And when that moment arrives, you may not feel surprised or shocked. Instead, you may feel something much calmer. You may feel relief. You may feel recognition. You may feel a serene understanding that comes when something you already knew finally becomes visible. Because the truth is, you felt it before there was any proof. You felt it before there were any explanations. You felt it before the conversations. You felt it before there was anything you could point to and clearly define. There was simply a knowing, a quiet feeling that stayed with you. Sometimes it appeared as an attraction to a certain person. Sometimes it appeared as a thought that entered your mind unannounced. Sometimes it appeared as a feeling in your chest that you couldn't quite explain. You may have experienced times when a person's name suddenly popped into your thoughts for no clear reason. You may have found yourself thinking about them at unexpected moments. You may have noticed that certain memories refuse to fade, lingering far longer than they should. And no matter how hard you tried to dismiss these experiences, they kept coming back. This is because intuition doesn't work the same way logic does. Logic demands proof. Logic wants certainty. Logic requires clear answers before allowing belief. Intuition works differently. It perceives patterns before the conscious mind recognizes them. It senses movement before visible action appears. It silently gathers information from countless tiny details that the conscious mind usually misses. Because of this, intuition often knows something long before the mind can explain it. For a while, you may have doubted yourself. You may have told yourself you were imagining things. You may have convinced yourself you were creating stories that weren't real. You may have looked for reasons to dismiss what you felt. You may have questioned your own perception over and over again. You may have wondered if you were simply attaching too much significance to everyday situations. But the feeling never completely disappeared. It remained somewhere beneath the surface, patient, constant, waiting, not assertive, not demanding attention, simply staying there until the moment it could be understood. And that patience has lasted longer than you realize. Because what's coming didn't begin recently. It didn't begin last week. It didn't begin at any point you can clearly identify. This has been quietly developing over time. While you were focused on other parts of your life, something else was developing in the background, slowly, carefully, almost invisibly. Someone has been holding on to thoughts they haven't fully expressed. Someone has been suppressing words they wanted to say. Someone has been grappling with feelings they didn't know how to communicate. This process hasn't been easy for them. Many people think silence means nothing, but often it's the other way around. Sometimes people are silent because what they feel is too important to risk. Sometimes they stay silent because they're afraid of changing something they value. Sometimes they stay silent because honesty seems dangerous. The possibility of rejection can be overwhelming. The possibility of misunderstandings can be terrifying. The possibility of losing a connection can be unbearable. So, instead of speaking up, they wait, they watch, they think, they hesitate. And while they hesitate, time keeps ticking by. This person may have spent far more time thinking about you than you realize. They may have noticed small details that others never paid attention to. They may have recalled conversations you considered ordinary. They may have noticed changes in your mood, your energy, and your presence. Things that seemed insignificant to you may have held profound meaning for them. Moments you've forgotten may have remained vivid in their memory. Words you barely remember saying may have lingered in their thoughts for weeks, months, or even longer, and more than once they may have been on the verge of speaking up. More than once they may have felt ready. More than once, words may have been on the verge of spilling out. But each time, fear held them back. Fear has a powerful way of interrupting honesty. It convinces people to wait for a better time. It convinces people to remain silent a little longer. It convinces people that tomorrow will be easier. But tomorrow often becomes another tomorrow, and then another, until the silence becomes heavy and unbearable. Your intuition may have sensed this struggle even without direct communication, even without clear words, even with the distance between you. Something may have felt unfinished. Something may have felt unresolved. There may have been times when the connection felt stronger than the communication itself. Times when silence held more meaning than words. Times when simple interactions felt unusually important. Moments that lingered in your mind long after they were over. You may not have fully understood why, but a part of you noticed. A part of you recognized that there was something more beneath the surface. That feeling wasn't confusion. It was awareness. It was your deepest understanding, the recognition that something remained unspoken. And unspoken truth has the peculiarity of staying alive. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't fade easily. It continues to move beneath the surface, seeking expression, waiting for a way forward. No matter how much time passes, no matter how far away it seems, no matter how many distractions appear in life, the truth has a way of finding its way. That's why certain connections are hard to forget. That's why some people keep appearing in your thoughts long after they've left your daily life. That's why some experiences resist disappearing completely. Often there's something unfinished waiting to be understood. And that may be what you've been feeling all this time. Not imagination, not fantasy, not illusions, but the quiet presence of something that hasn't yet been fully revealed. Now something is beginning to change. The energy surrounding this situation is shifting. What once seemed stagnant is beginning to loosen. What once seemed blocked is beginning to move. What once seemed permanent is becoming less fixed, and the reason is simple. People can only keep unspoken truths for so long. Over time, honesty becomes easier than silence. Over time, expressing yourself becomes easier than suppressing everything. Over time, the need to speak becomes stronger than the fear of speaking. And when that moment arrives, everything can change with a few simple words. If this message stirs something within you, it's worth paying attention to that feeling. Sometimes a message resonates not because it introduces something new, but because it draws attention to something that was already there, lying dormant. What you begin to understand isn't just about another person. It's also about you. It's about your awareness. It's about your ability to perceive meaning before it becomes visible. It's about how often you've understood things long before they were spoken aloud. Life isn't preparing to surprise you with something completely unknown. Instead, it's preparing to confirm something you've been sensing for a long time. And that difference matters because what this person is understanding now goes beyond superficial emotion. They recognize that what they felt never truly disappeared. They realize they tried to move on while still carrying thoughts they couldn't release. They admit that distance didn't erase what remained inside. They may have tried to convince themselves otherwise. They may have been distracted by daily life, responsibilities, and other points of focus. But the feelings remained, the connection remained, the unanswered questions remained, and eventually, carrying all of that became heavier than honesty. That's why this moment matters, not just for them, but for you as well. Because unresolved situations affect both parties, even when nothing is said. Even when life seems normal on the surface, a part of your attention may still be connected to what hasn't been fully understood. A part of your mind may still be clinging to what hasn't been answered. And now that connection is moving toward clarity. When the truth finally arrives, something begins to become clear. The atmosphere surrounding the situation shifts. The uncertainty that once filled so much space begins to dissipate, and something precious returns to you. Your clarity returns, you regain your confidence, your faith in yourself is slowly rebuilt. That may be one of the most important gifts hidden within this experience, because once everything becomes clear, you begin to understand something important. Your intuition wasn't wrong. Your emotional awareness wasn't a weakness. Your sensitivity wasn't a flaw. You were perceiving something real. You were sensing something before it had a clear form. You were recognizing a truth before it had words. Many people spend years doubting themselves. They ignore what they feel inside. They dismiss their inner voice. They only believe in what can be proven with visible evidence. But life often teaches something different. Sometimes awareness comes first. Sometimes understanding comes later. Sometimes the heart recognizes reality before the mind can explain it. That's why this moment matters so much. It confirms more than someone else's feelings. Affirm your ability to trust yourself. Think about everything you've experienced recently. The emotional growth, the lessons in patience, the moments of uncertainty, the times you wanted answers but didn't get them, the periods when you had to let go of control. None of those experiences were in vain. Each one was preparing you. Each one was strengthening you from within. Each one was teaching you to stand firm even when the future was uncertain. You were learning to stand on your own 2 feet. You were learning to find peace without needing immediate answers. You were learning to trust yourself. Thanks to that growth, you can now receive the truth from a different place. Not from despair, not from fear, not from emotional dependence, but from stability. And that changes everything. When honesty finally arrives, it's important to understand something. Honesty doesn't guarantee a perfect outcome. Truth doesn't guarantee a perfect start. What honesty does give is clarity. It replaces confusion with understanding. It replaces assumptions with facts. It replaces uncertainty with awareness. And once awareness is present, something powerful emerges. Choice. You are free to decide what happens next. You no longer react to guesswork. You no longer try to fill in the gaps. You no longer endlessly search for signs. You respond to reality. That is where true strength begins. True strength is not about controlling other people. It is not about forcing outcomes. It is not about making life follow a specific plan. True strength comes from seeing clearly and acting with self-respect. It comes from staying grounded no matter what. It comes from trusting your own worth. If you are listening to these words and feel an emotion arise within you, pay attention to that feeling, not because it predicts the future, but because it reveals something about your inner world. Emotion often points to what matters deeply. It highlights what deserves attention. It reminds you of what your heart has been holding on to. If you feel calm as you listen to this message, that calm may also be significant. True truth often creates peace rather than panic. When something aligns with what you already know deep within, it can feel familiar. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just familiar, as if something missing has quietly fallen into place. And if this message feels familiar, it may be because your intuition recognizes something in it. It may be pointing to something you've already been feeling. It may be reminding you of something your heart has known for a long time. As this moment approaches, resist the temptation to force anything. Don't rush the process. Don't seek answers out of fear. Don't create pressure where patience is still needed. Let things unfold naturally. Let people arrive at their own understanding. Let honesty come in its own time. Because truth that comes naturally has a different power. It feels real. It feels steady. It feels lasting. When it finally appears, you may realize something important. Your intuition didn't just sense a connection. It also sensed the right timing. It sensed that certain truths can only emerge when people are ready to face them. And readiness changes everything. As you move forward, there's another layer to understand. The biggest change may not be in the relationship itself. The biggest change may happen within you. After the truth is spoken, you may notice a calm spreading through your life. The questions that once dominated your thoughts begin to lose their power. The thoughts that repeated themselves over and over begin to quiet down. The need to constantly analyze begins to fade. This happens because clarity has a powerful effect on the mind. Uncertainty creates tension. Questions create pressure. Not knowing drains energy. When understanding finally arrives, that energy is released. You may feel lighter. You may feel more present. You may feel more connected to yourself. Even old memories may begin to look different. Things that once seemed confusing may begin to make sense. Conversations that seemed incomplete may reveal a deeper meaning. Silences that were once painful may finally become understandable. This doesn't set you back. It frees you from the past. It allows you to move forward without carrying the weight of unanswered questions. From that moment on, a new chapter begins. A chapter built on awareness instead of uncertainty. A chapter built on honesty instead of assumptions. A chapter built on choice instead of emotional longing. That foundation changes everything. When you are in clarity, you no longer need constant reassurance. You no longer feel the need to analyze every message. You no longer search for hidden meanings in every pause or interaction. Your nervous system begins to relax. Your mind calms. Your heart becomes more steadfast. Even if questions still arise, they no longer feel threatening. They no longer control your emotions. They no longer shake your foundation because you are now standing on something stronger. You are grounded in truth. And truth creates stability in a way that uncertainty never can. You now understand that you can navigate uncertainty without getting lost in it. You no longer feel the need to control every outcome. You no longer feel responsible for forcing clarity to appear. Instead, you trust yourself. You trust your ability to handle whatever comes. You trust your opportunity. You trust your judgment. That's why life starts to feel different. There's less pressure, less urgency, less fear. You no longer believe that every answer must come immediately. You no longer believe that every question must be resolved instantly. You begin to understand that some things reveal themselves only when the time is right. This understanding does more than change a situation. It changes the way you relate to yourself. You begin to respect your intuition more deeply, not as something mysterious, but as a silent form of intelligence that has been guiding you all along. You begin to notice how many times it helped you, how many times it warned you, how many times it spoke before your conscious mind could fully grasp what was happening. That awareness creates confidence, a different kind of confidence. It's not boastful confidence, nor is it approval-seeking, nor does it depend on others agreeing with you. This confidence comes from experience. It comes from recognizing that your inner voice deserves to be heard. As it grows, that confidence begins to influence every area of your life. You become more attuned to your feelings. You listen more attentively when something feels right. You pay closer attention when something feels wrong. You stop dismissing your instincts simply because someone else doesn't understand them. You become less dependent on external validation. You're less afraid to make decisions. You trust yourself to overcome challenges. You trust yourself to recognize opportunities. You trust yourself to bounce back from mistakes. And that confidence becomes one of the greatest gifts this experience leaves behind. You begin to understand that patience isn't weakness. Patience is strength. Patience is the ability to remain calm as life unfolds. You begin to understand that silence doesn't always mean absence. Sometimes silence is part of a larger process. Sometimes important things are developing beneath the surface. Sometimes people need time before they can speak honestly, and sometimes the truth needs space before it can fully emerge. You also learn that rushing rarely creates true clarity. When people force answers before they're ready, something important is often lost. True understanding can't be rushed. True growth cannot be rushed. True truth comes in its own time. As you move forward, remember that you don't need to rush to any conclusions. You don't need to label everything immediately. You don't need to make decisions before you're ready. You have permission to take your time. You have permission to listen to your own feelings. You have permission to choose what truly aligns with your values. You have permission to protect your peace. This chapter isn't about proving anything. It isn't about convincing anyone. It isn't about winning. It isn't about being right. It's about honoring what you know. It's about respecting your own experience. It's about living more honestly than before. Whatever happens next, you are no longer in the dark. You are no longer endlessly waiting for answers. You are in awareness, and awareness changes everything. As that awareness settles deeper into your life, another transformation begins. It's subtle, it's silent. You may not notice it immediately, but over time it becomes impossible to ignore. You begin to realize that fear no longer has the same hold on you. The fear of loss begins to weaken. The fear of rejection begins to fade. The fear of being misunderstood begins to lose its power. Instead, you connect more with yourself. And when you connect with yourself, life feels different. Your emotions become more balanced. Your thoughts become clearer. Your reactions become calmer. You stop fighting every moment of uncertainty. You stop assuming the worst. You stop carrying unnecessary emotional baggage. You begin to understand that this experience was never just about someone else. It was also about discovering yourself. It was about slowing down enough to truly see who you are. It was about finding yourself honestly. It was about learning what remains when uncertainty is removed. The waiting taught you something. The questions taught you something. The moments of doubt taught you something. Even the moments of hope taught you something. Every part of this journey shaped you. Every challenge strengthened you. Every lesson prepared you. You became someone capable of facing the truth without fear. You became someone capable of remaining calm even when emotions ran high. You became someone capable of choosing clarity over confusion. That growth stays with you. You may notice that your conversations are lighter. You may notice that your relationships are healthier. You may notice that you are no longer overwhelmed by uncertainty as you once were. This is because your inner world has strengthened. You have developed a solid foundation within yourself. You no longer need constant reassurance from others. You have learned to reassure yourself. You no longer need endless explanations. You have learned to trust what you know. And that changes the quality of every relationship in your life. If this connection continues to grow, it will do so from a healthier place. It will grow without unnecessary pressure. It will grow without endless guesswork. It will grow without the emotional strain that once surrounded it. And if life takes you down a different path, you will still be okay. That is the true power you have gained. The knowledge that your peace does not depend on a specific outcome. Knowing that your worth doesn't depend on someone else's decisions. Knowing that your future remains open and full of possibilities no matter what. That strength changes your life. It transforms how you approach every situation. It changes how you communicate. It changes your boundaries. It changes how you treat yourself. You become more present in your daily life. You begin to focus more on your goals. You reconnect with your creativity. You invest more energy in your own growth. You become more aware of your purpose. Not because connection no longer matters, but because it no longer defines your entire world. You ground yourself first, and that creates a stronger foundation for every relationship. Over time, you'll recognize how much this experience has refined your emotional awareness. It taught you to listen attentively. It taught you to perceive what lies beneath the surface. It taught you to remain open without abandoning your own needs. It taught you to balance compassion with self-respect. These lessons stay with you long after the situation has changed. They influence how you love. They influence how you communicate. They influence how you protect the peace you've worked so hard to create. You become more aware of how you use your energy. You reflect more on where you invest your attention, not out of fear or mistrust, but because you value yourself. And when you value yourself, you naturally become more selective about what deserves your time. In that state, life begins to flow differently. What belongs in your life grows naturally. What no longer belongs gradually fades away. There is less confusion, less struggle,